go ahead and get started. Thank you for your break as Tim got everything set up for us here. So we'll just do another little bit more about introduction to simulation, and it's different from the last one. So what are our objectives today, objectives of this lecture? I want you guys to be able to define what the role of SimND is for North Dakota. Mr. Tom Naring from the State Department of Health is here, and he's going to talk some more about that as well. But what is SimND? Who are you guys? What are you going to be doing? We want to identify the relationship between SimND and ND star. ND star is our center here. And then just some of the roles and responsibilities of you as the team members of SimND. So who is SimND? Well, SimND is a conglomeration, so to speak, of nurses and paramedics and drivers and all of us involved across the state of North Dakota who are going to be doing education with simulation to healthcare providers. And our goal is going to be to hit every single critical access hospital in the state and every EMS unit in the state at least once a year. The goal of SimND is not to teach your hospitals, but because the trucks aren't going to be out on the road 24/7, when they're not out on the road doing the critical access and EMS units, you're using them for your own people at your own hospitals. So that's where the benefit to your hospitals comes in. And this is just a map that we got from the Center for Rural Health. It just kind of shows a basic description of where everybody's going to be headed. And this is not the ideal, this is not the only way it's going to be, but this just gives us a representation. So the Helmsley Trust. Who are Leona and Harry Helmsley? Both have passed away, but they left money for a charitable trust. And their Leona's grandson, Walter, decided that he would use this money to help out rural areas. He did some research and he found out that, Tom, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but over 80% of the monies that were grants and gifts and monies that were put to education in the Midwest was put to non-rural areas, and most of that went to the Mayo Clinic. And that left very little for the rest of the Midwest. So that's North, South Dakota, Montana, Minnesota, Nebraska, et cetera, et cetera. And out of that, there was just a minuscule amount that was left for education in rural health. So he decided that he's going to take this grant money and it's going to benefit rural health in the Midwest states. And there's a little benefit here. He used to be a paramedic in South Dakota, so he had some attachment to South Dakota and North Dakota. So you've probably heard of the STEMI grant. Excuse me. That's one of the things that Helmsley has done. You've heard of ambulances getting new defibrillators, monitors. A lot of them came from Helmsley. You've heard about small hospitals getting digital mammography before the big centers did. That was a Helmsley thing. You've heard about e-medicine and e-ICU, these electronic video monitoring of intensive care units. That's a Helmsley thing. So Helmsley's put millions, and I know well over 20 million, and I want to say almost up to 40 million into North Dakota already on different things, and this is just one of those. So their intent of the grant is purely rural healthcare improvement. They want to make sure that people in small towns, people in rural North Dakota get the benefit of education that they wouldn't normally get. Excuse me. And then the other thing, teamwork is really huge in the Helmsley grant. They want people to work as teams because they've researched and they found out that as teams we do a much better job. And lives are saved, people work better, health is improved, everything is better if we're working in teams. That's been proven in aviation, it's been proven in the military as well. So ND Star is the recipient of the grant. Cheryl and Amy and I worked on it, and Cheryl and Amy did the lion's share of the work writing this grant to Helmsley. and it was approved by the board of directors at Helmsley in June. And I'm the principal investigator of the grant. Amy Melheim, who you met, is our program outreach coordinator. Amy's kind of the boss of the whole thing. She directs what's going to happen with the grant. Our grants and contracts office at UND is the financial controllers of this grant. Everything has to go through them. The North Dakota State Department of Health is going to provide oversight for the whole project. That's Mr. Tom Nearing, and he'll be talking to you in a moment as well. And all these health systems are our support teams. So this is a big conglomeration, I guess, of a lot of different people. Now, South Dakota has a really good project together. Helmsley put this together with South Dakota. South Dakota actually designed the trucks, had the trucks built. They designed the whole program for statewide simulation, unlike any place has had before. South Dakota's is different than ours. South Dakota has 3 trucks and 2 Suburbans, and the trucks are owned and operated by individual hospitals. One of the things that Helmsley said when North Dakota wrote their grant, when we wrote our grant, is that this will not be managed, it will not be owned, and it will not be run by any institution that gives health care. They said, we want all bias out of this. So that's why when UND applied for it, actually they approached the State Department of Health, who came to us, and Helmsley thought that's pretty good because you have a training institution that doesn't give medical care. And then you can coordinate the whole thing. So that's how it happened to fall in our hands, because we're not a caregiving institution here. So ours will be set up differently, or is set up differently than South Dakota in that respect. And then the health systems in the state will help keep this thing sustainable. So the State Department of Health, the University of North Dakota Medical School, and then the 6 major hospitals all have a huge financial input into this, as well as in-kind donation of services, your services, and they're covering that. The grant helps cover that for the first year, beginning now, 100%. Then in year 2, it's 66%, year 3 it's 33%, then on year 4 we're on our own. And that's where the health systems, UND, and the State Department of Health come in to help out with that. Now that being said, that puts a lot onto the 6 hospitals, the State Department of Health, and the medical school. That doesn't mean we're just going to rest back and not look for more funding. We are going to continue to look for funding so that we can help relieve the hospitals at some point down the road. Because we know with the federal government, the changes that are coming about, that it's getting tougher and tougher for hospitals to do well. So we are very aware of that and are going to keep working on that. So what does ND STAR stand for? Well, our Sim Center is North Dakota Simulation, Teaching, and Research for Healthcare. We came about by a generous gift from Blue Cross Blue Shield. They built our Sim Center for us, and they populated it with 13, with counting the neonate, 13 simulators, and got us up and running. But we have an obligation to Blue Cross Blue Shield and to the state. They said, we're going to put this at the teaching institution because that's where medical education starts basically, but you have to get gradually further and further and further as time goes on. They said, you are not just to sit at UND and teach medical students and nursing students. If we provide this money, we eventually want you to get out across the state. And we'd like you to get all reaches of the state in the next 10 years. Well, we got our gift from them in 2007. We started building in 2008. We finished building in the end of 2009, and we went into service in 2010. So by 2020, we were to get to the rest of the state. Well, with this opportunity for the grant, things were speeded up a lot. So now we're able to get there. By the end of this year, we'll be reaching the whole state and keeping our obligation to Blue Cross Blue Shield on providing simulation for everywhere, not just students. So our purpose is to use these high-fidelity simulators to educate the multidisciplinary healthcare providers. So it's multi-professional or interprofessional, however you want to call it. And we want to get the highest quality and the safest healthcare in the nation. Now, if you look back, one of the things we thought about when we were working on this grant was the city of Houston and the city of Seattle. Alone, each of those cities has a higher population than the state of North Dakota. But those two cities are some of the safest cities to have a cardiac arrest in, because more people in those cities are trained for CPR, and you have a higher survival in those cities than anywhere else in the nation. So we sat back and thought, you know what, with 650,000 and growing in North Dakota, and borders that are easily reachable, aside from some weather issues, and the personality and the type of people we have in North Dakota, we can do this. We can do as well as these cities. We can do even better. And it became our thought, we want to make this state the safest place to live in. Then with the oil boom out west, all the needs that they have now, this became even more of a pressing issue for us. So interprofessional, safest, highest quality care that we can provide, that's our goal. The vision is to provide the education and training to all these professionals and then be a nationally recognized resource for simulation. And we'll talk about that in visioning. But right now, you guys, not personally, but you guys are being watched all around the United States and around the world. I've already had calls for phone consultation, recommendations from the East Coast, out in California, Sydney, Australia. Saudi Arabia has already called the manufacturer and said they want 200 of these trucks. So they're looking. So when we were at the simulation conference, I talked with some of the people from Saudi Arabia, and they are watching what we're doing. And they want to keep in touch with us because they want to see how we do it so they can learn from us. And I'll talk more about that in visioning, but whether you like it or not, you're already in the international spotlight. So who are the staff? I'm the medical director of SimND, and for those of you who don't know me, I am a physician, internal medicine. I've had some critical care background. I do still practice internal medicine at Altru, and I teach in the medical school in the curriculum, the clinical skills curriculum of med school, and then I'm the director of the Sim Center here. Amy is our program outreach coordinator. You'll learn more about Amy's job, but Amy is the one who will do all the scheduling, all the programming and stuff for SimND. Wherever you guys go on your trucks, that's where Amy's going to send you. She's the one who will direct all of that. She's our air traffic controller. So if the weather is bad, Amy has the final say on these, whether you go or not go. Not you out in the spot, but it's our air traffic controller here. Amy will control that. That's why she's the boss of us all. And then we have the SimND education director, that's Cheryl. Cheryl is in the back waving there. Cheryl writes the scenarios with the medical input from me and for others. We review the scenarios. We have a team of docs and nurses and paramedics across the state who have helped us to put these simulation scenarios together. So it's not just what John Allen wants or what Cheryl Stoffenaker wants. These are scenarios that are put together based on specialists out in North Dakota who are using the criteria and guidelines from their own specialty divisions, from the American College of Physicians for internal medicine, the American College of Surgeons for the surgery thing and the trauma thing, from the paramedic world, from the nursing world, brings it all together. That's how we put the scenarios together. We're going to try to update these scenarios on a regular basis based on the changes that occur in these organizations as well. Jamie is our simulation technical director. He's back in the corner there. All of you who are going to be the techies on the truck, he is the man. He's our sim surgeon. He's the guy who fixes these things. He knows more about the ins and outs and running of the simulators than I think we do about human bodies. So we rely on him. Then we've got Tim Shea, our simulation director. Tim's in the back there. Tim is a paramedic of many years. He's done a lot of medical education in the paramedic field as well. So Tim is very helpful for us as well. And you met Amy. Joe is back. Is Joe back here? Joe Miller is one of our standardized patient instructors here. We use standardized patients. We hire people and train them as actors to be patients. So in that clinical education center, we put on exams that look like clinics. As you walk through there, you probably see on the backside it looks like a clinic, and on the inside it's really like a clinic where the students go from room to room to room seeing patients every 15 minutes, or they learn to do their education there. And we take people from the community who we've trained to be patients, and they can do very well with their faking diseases. And we sometimes use them with our simulation as well. So Joe is one of our coordinators. Dawn Drake also works with, she and Joe work together training in standardized patients. You'll see both of them quite a bit. Joyce Sang is one of our simulation technical experts and helps us get everything set up. Out in front, Tara Zernhelt is our receptionist, so you'll see Tara out there. So over the course of this week and other weeks, you'll see a lot of us around here. So what is our vision statement? This is it. Vision of SimND is to enhance, support, promote, and facilitate healthcare education with the use of simulation. So we made it generic in the fact that we're going to enhance healthcare education. So we have simulators to do it. We have trucks to take the simulators out, but it's not all about the trucks. It's not all about the simulators. It's all about what we can do to get education to these places that probably wouldn't get it, or they have a hard time getting it because they can't afford it, or they can't send their crews somewhere else because it leaves their city unstaffed. So that's our vision. Okay, that'll probably go right past it if it does. Our mission statement is to improve patient care by the education and enrichment of rural and frontier healthcare providers. Now, why rural and frontier? That's what Helmsley wants. They want to have the rural areas, the frontier areas that are way out on the reaches that don't have real close access to healthcare. They want them to have just as good a healthcare and just as good a survival as all the bigger centers do. Somehow it's slowing up again here. So then the SimND education teams, that's what you are. There will be 3 people on the truck at each time. All 3 of you will have dual duties, as you probably already know. Every one of you will be an educator. You'll all be teaching with simulation. But one of you will also be the truck driver and responsible for the operation of the truck. One of you will be the technician, responsible for troubleshooting and running the simulators, and one of you will be the team leader. Per the grant, the team leader is one of the nurses. So you have to have at least one nurse on the team, and then the rest can be nurses or paramedics. You all know what your makeup is. Each team is going to have 2 drivers, and we're going to limit it to 2 drivers because these trucks are not the easiest thing to drive. Talk to your drivers already who have experience. They're difficult. And so we want the same people to be driving them over and over so that they have the experience and they're used to it. If one of these trucks gets damaged or wrecked and is out of commission, it will take 1 year to get it back again. So if it's minor damage, that's not a big deal. But if we have to redo the truck, it'll be 1 whole year before you can get a truck back. That's how long it takes to get these things turned around. So that's why we're going to be real careful and safe with that. So then the team leader is going to be the one responsible for calling the teams together, contact with Amy on when you go, where you're going to go to, when all the new information comes out, if we have updates, new information, communication between ND Star here and your teams. The team leader will take care of all of that. And if there's other things that you need from us, the team leader will get a hold of us for that too. The technical director, you're going to have some time with Jamie. The technical director's here. But part of the grant is that we have access, Jamie has access to CAE Medi's 24/7 simulation technical director at the manufacturing plant. So if there's problems any time of the day or night, Jamie can call that person and we will be guaranteed that we will have support. So if you guys are out doing education, it's 8 o'clock at night and you're at a rural EMS unit and your technical director can't fix it, your first call is to Jamie. And Jamie will guide you through some of these things. You will already probably know how to fix 98% of everything you have to. But if there's something you can't, you call Jamie. If that can't work, then Jamie calls the technical director in Florida, and then we'll get things rolling from there. But we have that benefit as well. Okay, so that's basically a brief overview of the grant. And I know Mr. Naring's going to cover a lot more on it when he gets to his time. I think one of the big things that I want to point out is that ours is similar to, but not identical to South Dakota. And by design and by direction from the Helmsley Trust, from the board of directors there, we had to do it differently. And the benefit of that is, this is the first time in the United States that a statewide simulation project has been done and run by a medical education institution with the 6 major health systems in the state all working together to make this thing work. Financially, with in-kind donations of time and services, and it also has the state of North Dakota involved. So we have a medical school, the state, and these health departments or these health systems involved. There's not another state that has a similar simulation program. Now, Missouri has a simulation program that's statewide. They have one, like a great big Winnebago motorhome that's outfitted, and 2 people run that all over the state. So, and they have a great program, but they struggle for funding. They can't do what we can do. We get 4 trucks. The state of Washington has something similar. Hawaii has something similar, but all of it is set up totally different. It's either shared, it's either directed by one, and there's other issues with it. This one is statewide. And as I mentioned, we're going to be calling on you because it is my goal, and I'll talk about it some envisioning, but it is my goal that we're going to present at the International Simulation Conference in 2014. So I'm hoping to be able to do that, and it's going to be more of how we set up a program like this. Then following that, we want to go and present some of our outcomes. So you guys will be collecting data so that we can see the benefit of this out there. So there's going to be a lot of work on your part getting that information for us so we can start doing some research on how to make this better. And then when you do research, when you come up with something that's good, if we have a really good product here, we're not going to just keep it to ourselves. We want to share it with the rest of the country and with the world. They are already waiting for us to share it. A lot of them don't think we can do it. A lot of others think, yeah, I think you really can do it. But once it gets done, we want to see how this will continue on. There is no end to SimND in sight. We're not planning to stop this. It's not 3 years of a grant. This is something that is going to be going on for the rest of our careers and the rest of our successors' careers. Down the road, I presume there's going to be new trucks to replace these trucks when they get worn out. But those of you that know trucks, they take a lot of miles before you're going to wear these things out. So we're planning to go well into the future. And so, 15, 20 years from now, there aren't going to be any of us involved with this. There'll be others taking over. So we're going to be continually training people over and over to keep this project going. So any questions at this point? Now, did I talk about things you already knew? I mean, some of the simulation I know, but about how it's set up, did anybody get get previewed or pre-briefed on this before you came, so this is new to you. Okay, so we'll cover it even more. Mr. Naring is going to cover some more details about that in his presentation as well, so that you'll learn more about it, because it's important for you to be able to go out and talk to the community, to talk to your colleagues at work, your nursing college, paramedic college, talk to your administration about how this is going to work. We've been to the administration of each of your hospitals and spent a lot of time with them beginning last spring. Spring, early summer. Yeah, it was, Tom, it was beginning in about March or something of last year. And March, April, May, we were out to every one of your hospitals and met with your administration, described the program in detail, discussed it with them, worked out details, and hammered this out back then. We met with them again last fall, traveled out to all these. So they're well aware of it, and they've been aware for a long time, but couldn't put all the details out until the grant came about and then until contracts came about. So there's been a lot of work that's gone into this up until this point to make it work. And we want you to have the information that you need to know so you can tell people about what SimND is and what you're part of. So, all right. Yes?
I put a picture of this truck on my Facebook page. It said this is my new office.
Yeah?
One of my friends asked if I was to be a mechanic.
Maybe a sim mechanic, I don't know. Yeah, we're developing a website because we have put so much time into getting this ready and with the grant and there's just lots of behind the scenes work. We have not dedicated a whole lot of time to the website yet, and that's a process we're going to be working on now. I don't know how to put up a website, but we're working with the people who will do that and getting them the information to put on there. So that's something that you'll be able to have access to. And then the Blackboard site is also something that will give you information. Oh, okay. Now you can, for those of you who haven't seen the inside of the truck, I don't know if it's going to filter through or go through quick enough, but this is a picture of the, okay, this is the, okay. This is South Dakota's truck now. On the front wall, when you're in the back of the education center, in the front wall, there's a 50-inch monitor, and that's the monitor that they use for debriefing. Ours is going to be moved a little bit. We've made some changes to what they're going to have. You can go to the next one. And this is in the emergency room area. This is on the left side, the bump out that's on the left. And you can go to the, and this is on the bump out on the right side. And you can see part of that screen on the front there. And then obviously the simulator is right in the center. So you can see there's two bump outs on either side there, and then the head wall with the monitor. We're going to have a placement of a whiteboard. They have their patient monitors on either side of the window over here. You can see they've got one monitor right there, and one monitor right there. Those are very difficult to utilize because, first of all, they're by a window, and second of all, they're fairly removed. So we're putting our monitors on the head wall where that great big screen is. That's where your monitors will be. You can go to the next one there. And this is just another picture on the left side of the bump out. This is part of the control room. In between the front end, which is like an emergency room with the bump outs, there's a small room for the control room, and that's where all the audio-video equipment is run. And then the next picture is just on the other side of the control room. And then the next picture. That just says Rosenbauer, but that's where all the electronics sit. And we can go to the next one. And this is just a picture of Dr. Terry Dwelly on the left, our state health officer, and one of the South Dakota paramedics, and they're in the back end of the truck. And that's what it looks like, an ambulance back there. You can flip through, and there's just a little bit more, a couple of the simulators in the truck. Okay. And then you can see how the bump out looks on either side. Okay. And it's got a large generator, a diesel generator there that you'll use to power it. the trucks have to stay above freezing at all times and below 80 degrees inside at all times. So there's 4 air conditioners on top, and then there's heaters in there too. So when you're out in freezing weather, if you're going to be parked outside, the generator has to be running all the time to keep it warm. We can't let the simulators and the equipment freeze inside. And it's a 4-door truck. Our modifications are that on South Dakota, they have a bench seat in the back. And when we talked to the South Dakota teams, they said, don't ever put a bench seat back there. So what we did is the seats that are in front of semis, you know, those air suspension, the air ride seats, we put 3 of them in the back. So there's going to be a lot more comfort in ours. The other modification, we're going to have a great big grill on the front of ours. They have not hit a deer, but they're really scared of hitting a deer. And we thought about that. If you damage the truck, you don't get it back for a long time. So if you're cruising down the highway at 70 miles an hour and you hit that deer, well, then maybe we can be just like Clint when he's driving his big rig. You just keep on going, right?
Our biggest problem was moose.
Moose?
The deer is nothing, it's the moose.
Yeah.
Moose coming out.
Well, these are supposed to handle the moose too. I saw some pictures of the trucks that they're building for us, and it had that big grill thing on the front, and I looked at that, and so I emailed him back, and I said, John, I think we could hit an elephant with that and not have any damage. And then there's lots of storage. There's going to be folding chairs and some other things in there. There'll be some emergency equipment. And you have an awning on the outside too, so that in good weather you can set your tables up and have their registration as they come in and go through that. And there's just more pictures of the ambulance area and more pictures of the front. So, okay. So that's kind of what the truck looks like. And again, our modifications are the grill. They do have air brakes on theirs. It also has stabilization pods, so that when you park somewhere, you put these 4 pods down to stabilize it. And we're going to learn from them a little bit about that. There's a lot of parking lots in South Dakota that have impressions in them from those, so we have to have some way to put underneath the pads, but that'll keep it stable so you're not rocking around too much in there. And the internal modifications, some, and other stuff we'll need for drivers, but that does not for the whole crew. So, yes?
You said truck can't be below freezing or above 80 degrees. How about storage of the truck when you're not, it has to be inside?
It has to be inside storage. It has to be climate-controlled storage. Yep. And as of this point, I believe we have something at every place. In Minot, it's going to be at Morelli Distributing. In Bismarck, it'll be the State Department of Health. I'm not sure, does the Fargo people know where it's going to be in Fargo?
One of the Sanford locations, warehouses.
Okay. And in Grand Forks, it was going to be stored in a helicopter hangar at the airport, but the helicopter program suddenly grew huge, even bigger. So right now, we're going to be at McKinnon Distributing, beer distributors, and then that'll be temporary until we find out. It was really interesting. They say, so that thing runs on beer? Yeah. So, okay. Any other questions? All right, we'll get ready for Tom here, right?